Hello, this is Andrew Smith, instructor of English at Tennessee Tech, and English 3400 is Introduction to Creative Writing. And this is a very brief introduction to creative nonfiction that I'm recording in light of so many lost class days due to ice. And there's going to be a handout that goes with this that I'll make available. But what is creative nonfiction? It's an umbrella term that describes lots of genres. But the most important thing to remember about this is long form prose as opposed to poetry, which we just finished, and it is true as opposed to short stories and fiction, which we will do next, whereas the plot and narrative can be completely a figment of your imagination, can also be based on history or based on speculation into the future. It can be based on real experiences, hence autobiographical fiction, but it's effectively not factual. And so Anne Lamott says, tell the truth and write about freedom. One scholar of creative nonfiction says, it is true stories well told. So this is what we are doing right now, is just getting ready to write a long form creative piece. It's not going to be that long for our purposes. 1,500 words, maybe 1,400 words is a sweet spot. That's just 3 or 4 pages. We're not getting into novella length here or full memoir length. Most people will be writing a short narrative with characters, with dialogue, of a real event that happened to them told in the first person. And that is oftentimes known as autobiography or memoir. I want to speak very briefly about what some of the other types of creative nonfiction are that you are allowed to write. My favorite is immersive journalism, also known as literary journalism, also known as gonzo journalism. The most famous book in recent history that I can think of is Into the Wild by John Krakauer, and he is a major author of the literary journalism. So basically what he does is he goes out and does reporting, but then he inserts his opinion and his feelings and his art form into the narrative and tells a story, as opposed to just reporting on a fact. And the story of the accidental death in the outback of Alaska of Chris McCandless, Alexander Supertramp, as told in Into the Wild, made film famous by Sean Penn and the film version of Into the Wild with that great soundtrack by Eddie Vedder. What could be better, right? A tribute to young Chris. So that is literary journalism. But back in the 60s, you had gonzo journalism, and that was Hunter S. Thompson. Some of the most famous things that he did was he went and placed himself in a political campaign. And he was gonzo on the campaign trail in 1972 when McGovern lost to Nixon. You have Norman Mailer and Tom Wolfe. Mailer went into the anti-Vietnam War protests and was like, the novel is history and the history is novel. And he blended literature and storytelling of a real event by immersing himself in the anti-war movement. Tom Wolfe, with the electric Kool-Aid acid test, he went and immersed himself with the Deadheads and the hippies, and he became sort of mingled up in it. And the writing style of electric Kool-Aid acid test, Wolfe could have been on the drugs. It's very immersive. So today, travel journalism, food journalism, music journalism, my favorite, of course, going to Bonnaroo, going to a music festival, going to Burning Man, becoming part of a community, embedding yourself in a QAnon group, people who went to the January 6th insurrection as journalists and storytellers have already released narratives that have, because of just how dramatic and colorful the event was on January 6th, have risen to the level of literature already. These long form pieces that have appeared in massive amounts on blogs and in popular and mainstream media. So an immersive experience of storytelling. It could even involve criticism where the author's voice is prominent as a storyteller. So you could be writing literally a history book, right, about World War II, World War I, about your grandparents' farm in Jackson County. It could be a investigative memoir in a sense. So it is a storytelling that involves research, and maybe the focus is less on yourself and more on the subject of other people, such as my relationship with a rock band like My Morning Jacket or U2. I could go and write a narrative journalism, literary journalism in that regard. Creative nonfiction is fact-based. It is based on real experiences. It has a narrative retelling and a personal voice. It includes in it that that reality itself is weird. Reality itself is interesting. Reality itself is fantastic. We go to the fiction to liberate our imaginations, and short stories, I can't wait to see how your imaginations are liberated. But we're learning more and more how entangled and strange and interesting just true life is. And so a story based on your real experiences is, in fact, literary. So we say narrative nonfiction, lyric essays, oral histories, literary journalism, participant journalism, literary nonfiction, witness literature, autobiography, personal essay, critical essay, biography, adventure travel, narrative history, deep reporting. These are all synonyms for creative nonfiction. Now, most of you will be writing memoir, which will be a true story about yourself, where you're the main character and it's told in the first person about a real event, much like the example we had in class from author Jessica Hunt. I'll also be releasing that video for the students who missed class on Monday or who would like to see and review what author Hunt Jessica told us on Monday. But so some tips from Mary Carr, and I've paraphrased these from her book, The Art of Memoir. Mary Carr is a very accomplished memoirist, and she tells you that you can still tell the truth, but take certain liberties. So you're going to have to be the internal judge of how authentic it is, but you don't want some little minor thing to hang you up and say, well, I can't tell this exactly like it happened, so I'm going to throw the whole story out. If the story is burning inside you as the story that must be written at this time by you for this assignment, I want you to tell that story, and you might have to take certain liberties. Mary Carr has 11. Number 1, dialogue is important, but you can recreate some dialogues if you don't remember exactly what the person said. Number 2, people change the names of the characters. Pseudonyms are acceptable. She suggests that you ask them if the name you picked for them is okay. It depends on if you're in touch with them or not. But this is to protect both the innocent and the guilty. Number 3, some people change the names of places. They have made up towns. Rather than Cookville, you make up a town name for Cookville or Woodbury or Gassaway or Knoxville, wherever. Number 4, you can change the appearance of somebody. You can change the way they dress slightly if you want. You can put them in a different outfit. Like I've got a magnetic Jesus. I know that you don't need to know this, but I've got a magnetic Jesus that I can put on the refrigerator, and I can change up what Jesus is wearing. So he's not wearing the long robes anymore. He can be like a new wave rock star from the 80s, which of course, my Jesus is a kind of a hipster, right? So you can dress up your characters how you want. Number 5, flash forwards in time may give narration an added perspective. And so your current self is always in dialogue with your past self when you're writing narrative memoir. So your storytelling is not told necessarily by 8-year-old self or by 15-year-old self. 21-year-old self, or in my case, 53-year-old self, has insights on 21-year-old me or 12-year-old you, as the case may be. You can skip over the boring parts. You don't have to feel obligated to put the boring parts in. Your descriptions may interpret a scene, and that might change the way the flow of the story is, because interpretation is always evident. You can't be unbiased in telling these stories, though you want to be authentic and truthful at all times. You can make some minor changes to protect somebody. If you want to leave somebody out of the story, even though they were there because you want to protect them. You can add scenes that really happened, but maybe had other witnesses. Maybe you have a good accounting of something that belongs in the story. You weren't there, but they were there, and you can borrow their account to build up your narrative for your memoir. But the memoir is about you and your motives and your voice, your authentic voice. It is not to speculate about others as well. And I'm going to conclude this infomercial very quickly because I've got to actually go teach right now my other class this morning. I'm packing in a lot today, but don't do this for revenge. Don't do this to hate on your haters. Revenge is for lawyers, and don't do this for therapy alone. This can be therapeutic, but don't do this for therapy alone. If you need help, get help. The therapeutic should be a fringe benefit of the story you tell, not the main purpose. And don't do it to get revenge on any of the characters. And don't exaggerate at the expense of the truth. The truth is the guiding factor in creative nonfiction. I'm Andrew Smith. I can't wait to read your creative nonfiction, which you will have done starting next week. We have our workshops beginning. Thank you, Creative Writing, and thank you anyone else who watches this video on creative nonfiction. Andrew Smith signing off.